Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Arsaholics podcast. It's Monday. It's Monday night, and we're not recording on the whistle today. It's been a couple of days since our win against Southampton, so a lovely 3-0 win. I've got Aaron with me. It's just him and I today. Hello, Aaron.
Hello, mate. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. A bit tired, as you know. So I am going on holiday tomorrow, so getting a lot of stuff done. I won't bore everyone with that. We'll go straight into the game because it was nice to get back to a win. Let's walk us quickly, very, very quickly through the lineup, which I absolutely had on my screen, and now it is gone. Here it is. A relatively no real surprise in the lineup were there, Aaron, and apart from one glaring one, which we'll get onto in a second. But we had Aaron Ramsdale, ever present at the moment. That kind of solid back four: Tomiyasu, Ben White, Gabriel, retaining his place. Thomas Partey, Granit Xhaka being the central midfielders, and obviously Smith Rowe still declared unfit. So Saka, Odegaard, and Martinelli play Martinelli. I think everyone was happy seeing him get another chance. And Lacazette up front, no Aubameyang. That's obviously a huge talking point, and we are going to talk about that in detail. But aside from the Oba omission, how did you feel about the lineup, Aaron?
Yeah, it was the same lineup that started against Everton, wasn't it? Pretty much. So in terms of the personnel that actually started.
Yes. Yeah.
I know there was talk about whether Smith Rowe would come in, and I was kind of hoping he would at the start of the game. And, to be honest, when I first saw the starting lineup, I had mixed feelings because I almost felt like it was like he hadn't reacted after Everton. So, okay, he's still playing Xhaka, he's still playing Partey, he's sticking with Lacazette. But then, I think it was very much a chance to redeem themselves. And we'll talk about the game, but I almost felt like we went through that like a journey in terms of the game itself. But no, I mean, I would have liked to have seen Smith Rowe, but if he wasn't fit, he wasn't fit. And then apart from that, I think the team sort of picks itself.
Yeah, let's talk about the kind of redemption theme that you kind of alluded to. Is that a theme that we're seeing with Arteta? Because I noticed it a few times when either we have a bad result or a certain player doesn't have a good game, they tend to keep their place, at least for the next game anyway. We've seen it with Tavares, against Liverpool. We've seen Lokonga, I think, a couple of times. I think, there was the game where he made that mistake and then he was allowed back in the team. And like you say, this is a team that lost against Everton, which, we all thought was arguably our worst performance of the season, and the whole team is retained. Is that a feature of Arteta, do you think?
I think it is. I just don't know how much of that was the reason why he picked the team that he did on Saturday. I think a lot of it was down to circumstances and availability of players, because I think if Smith Rowe was fit, Smith Rowe would have played. Then we have the Aubameyang situation, which obviously meant that, you really only have a choice between Lacazette and Eddie. And then there's a whole Pepe situation that's ongoing. And I don't think there was ever a chance of Pepe starting. So I think the team sort of picked himself. But you're right. I think there are clear kind of situations where he does let those players get another go. And I think with these home games, the way the schedule has worked out, we've had these tough away games, but we always seem to have a relatively comfortable opponent at home. And, so far we've been very good at home. So I think it's a nice opportunity to do that.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Let's talk about the game. So before the first goal, and I didn't watch the game. I was unable to be there and couldn't find a legal stream to watch it on. But from all accounts, and let me know if you think this is correct. From all accounts, prior to scoring the goal, we weren't very good, were we?
No, we were rubbish.
And why was that?
I don't know. I think I don't know if it was a hangover from the Everton game, but it was very much a continuation of that. And I can think the crowd was kind of nervy. The crowd were a bit worried. I don't think it was ever a negative vibe as such, because I think we've discussed this before, but the vibe you get in the ground is very different to the vibe you get online or on social media. In that I think there's fans in the ground, although none of us were there. I think it was quite clear you can just see that it's not anti-Arteta, it's not anti-Arsenal, it's not, oh, why are you doing this? It's much more patient, it's much more tolerant. But at the same time, you could tell that fans were concerned as to why there was a continuation of the way we played at Everton. So I honestly couldn't really tell you why it happened. You could argue it's a confidence thing, and we'll probably talk about that and how we played after we scored. But up until that first goal, I think Ramsdale made a few good saves. I think Armstrong had a chance. And, you could argue that for that first 20 minutes, Southampton were probably the better team because they were pressing and they won the ball off us from their high press a few times and put us under a lot of pressure. And it wasn't until the first goal that we really kind of did something about it.
Yeah, let's talk about that first goal, because I have many questions about this goal, right? So it sounded like Arteta was really, really encouraging the guys to have faith in playing out from the back. It sounded like Southampton were pressing really hard, and he was really instructing the guys to be calm, trying to encourage Ramsdale to not go long. And in fairness to Ramsdale, he's a pretty cool character. The goal comes from us beating a press in that exact way, right? So Ramsdale is pressed very hard. He makes a pass which looks like it's a fraction of a second just on time, and suddenly a series of press beating passes at various angles looks completely rehearsed, looks completely intentional in every kind of decision, leads in us getting right up the pitch, Saka putting the ball across, and Lacazette scoring an absolutely, what's the word for it? Just a real goal of conviction.
It's like a really nice finish.
A really nice finish. Talk me through that. I mean, like
it was. Yeah, I think my biggest surprise was it was very much out of nowhere. And even watching this, because like I said, we were really bad for the first 20 minutes. The passing was slow, and then Southampton did put us under a bit of pressure, and it was that. You've seen it before, that high risk passing out the back where they leave it to the last minute to play that pass. And then all of a sudden the ball went out to, I think it was Tomiyasu. And then it just, like with a click, everything just changed. And it's just like they were possessed. And then it was pinpoint rapid passing to a number of players. And then all of a sudden Saka was in, and we'd taken about 7 or 8 of the Southampton players out of the game. And I think Southampton were just shocked as to where it came from, because they were like, oh, you haven't been doing this for the first 20 minutes. And then bang, all of a sudden Saka's in. And then I don't think he got in, and then I think he was up against Ward-Prowse, and he had the beating of Ward-Prowse, and he just played the perfect pass in to Lacazette, and it was just the perfect finish, that one-time finish into the top corner, and it was just a really, really good goal. But again, if I haven't said it already, I was just very, very surprised as to just how out of the blue that pinpoint passing, especially like in playing out the back, we've seen it a few times, right? But I think what often happens is we do that initial phase of playing it out, get it to either into midfield or get it to the fullbacks, and then it suddenly slows down again. But here it just got faster and faster. And everything worked out really well, and it was a lovely goal. I think I've watched it about 7 or 8 times since.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting that a goal of such beauty in its build-up, it still requires an excellent finish, doesn't it? And it feels like that's something that we've been lacking recently. That finish, and I think it just goes to show how important it is. A question I had for you, mate. I was really reflecting on this, but when I saw the goal, cast your mind back, almost close your eyes if you will, cast your mind back to when Arteta first took over. And it felt like one of the things that he was doing with the squad that he inherited was to say, all right, I'm going to get you comfortable with beating the press. And if you remember that cup run, we scored a goal beating the press against Man City.
Yeah.
And then if we kind of then cast forward just kind of to the summer, we played the Charity Shield and Community Shield, whatever you call it. I remember we scored a lovely goal beating the press against Liverpool, which Aubameyang scored. We scored a lovely goal in the first game of the season against Fulham. It was the third goal which Aubameyang scored, and it was almost like a carbon copy of that Liverpool goal in the Community Shield. It was beating the press, bang, 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 bang. My question for you is, that kind of goal was happening very early in Arteta's reign. Now he's had a couple of seasons, he's got his own players in, and that's suddenly happening less frequently, it feels. Why is that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think we've struggled to find the balance between defensive stability and, playing well and feeding our front three players at the right time and transitioning quickly. So when it works, it obviously looks quite well. And I think that early part of the season, I don't think the defensive players weren't really there, but you could argue that Aubameyang was in far better form. We were getting the ball to the front three a lot quicker, and it was just a case of them taking their chances. And now the opposite has sort of happened, where I feel like we're confident at the back and we're really confident getting it out of kind of the back four into midfield. But after that, for a number of reasons, the fact that I don't think the midfield is always transitioning correctly, and the fact that when the front three get the ball, they're really wasteful and really just slow in creating meaningful chances. I feel like that balance has shifted. So, and then I do honestly think that a lot of it is confidence. I think when you give these players the confidence that they can do this stuff, they do it really well, and they try it. And the reality is they will get caught a few times. And I think that's happened in a few instances that perhaps we haven't been punished as much, but they will lose the ball. Ramsdale will give it away at some point this season. Gabriel or Ben White will give the ball away to a striker who's just going to lay it off and score. That is the downside to this risk. But the idea is that hopefully by beating the press and by doing it, we'll put ourselves in enough of a positive position going forward that it doesn't really matter if we lose it once, for example. Because you watch that goal when Saka was played in, I think it was, there was 3 players left, and it went from a goal kick to Saka being in behind 8 of their players taken out of the game. And it was just so nice to watch. And you just think, well, if we can do that, then, and we can do it more often, then you will really get behind this team and their ability to go and win points.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's and I wonder whether one of the other reasons why I thought it might be happening is it. Do you think it could be a case where teams now know that that's a feature of what an Arteta team wants to do, and then they prepare for it more, whereas at the beginning they perhaps didn't really know about it? And is it just a byproduct of people just studying us more and understanding what they need to do to stop us scoring?
Possibly, but there've been loads of games this season and last season where we were getting pressed and just not beating it. And I think a lot of it is down to just I think there is an argument to say, well, what happens if a team doesn't press and they sit back, for example, and that we require different players, different systems, different attacking patterns of play. But for team, there have been plenty of examples this season where, I think I remember the Brighton game, for example, where Brighton really pressed us and we just had no response to their press. And if we had beaten their press, maybe we would have got a result. But there've been loads of times where we just haven't had that confidence to take on the press and just show ourselves and assert ourselves in the game. And I think that goal came at the perfect time because it just gave us a huge confidence boost in terms of, okay, well, this is the way we want to play. And if we get it right, we will score goals. And you could see how much it meant to the players. I don't know if you saw Aaron Ramsdale's celebration.
Yeah, the news slide.
After that first goal, he absolutely went mental because I think it was just, validation for
real vindication.
The way we play. And if we get it right, what it will mean. And, we have a young team, and I think belief and that mental side of things is a huge, huge aspect of their development, and that's something that they're going to have to get better at.
Really, really good point, mate. And I think that's evidenced by the fact that we then score 2-3 minutes afterwards, right?
Yeah.
From a period of, just like you say, a bit of a lull, a bit of a lack of bite. Suddenly you score, suddenly everyone's lifted, and then with minutes, we're doubling up on it. Let's talk about the goal, because it's very different. It wasn't necessarily a thing of beauty, was it? It was it was a headed goal in the end from Odegaard, which is allegedly his first headed goal of his career.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah.
Wow. And we're not talking about like a 10-yard header here or anything like that. It's just really, really as arguably straightforward as they come. But I did think there were some good things about that goal. I think, namely, getting numbers in the box to,
exactly.
Because if he was going to miss that, there was someone else who was waiting to make the header as well, wasn't there?
Yeah, you're spot on. I think just the fact that, okay, well, we do have a problem with our strikers perhaps not being as clinical or not taking the chances, but the one way to compensate for that is to have midfielders that score goals. And the way our midfielders are going to score goals is by getting into attacking positions in the box when we have players like Tierney putting that service in. And I think it was just a case of like, well, if you get into the box, then these chances will come your way. And then if you do have the ability to finish, and it was a really good header that he took, it will work out really well for us. And I don't think we do it anywhere near enough. And I think the one way out of this striker situation that I'm sure we'll talk about later on is actually for our midfielders to step up and chip in with goals. And that's, I think, his fourth goal now. Is that right?
I think it's his fourth goal, his third in a row. Like I say, all great strikers can score right foot, left foot headers, and look at him. He scored three goals, right foot, left foot header. I mean,
yeah.
Do you need to? Let's just play Odegaard up front.
Yeah, I mean, he's always been. I think I remember even last season, he always gets into sort of good positions. I feel, even I think was it Old Trafford or Everton where he had a chance and then it was on his right foot and he didn't take it because he tried to cut in against his left. But he always gets into these semi-decent positions, but has kind of lacked the finish. And I think over the last couple of games, he's just started taking some of these chances. And he could probably get a few more, actually, when you think about it, in terms of the positions he gets into and the talent he has. So alongside, when you look at him getting 4 goals, and I think Smith Rowe's probably got a similar number of goals.
Yeah.
When was the last time we had a midfielder at Arsenal actually get more than 4 or 5 goals a season?
Yeah, like an Aaron Ramsey season.
Ramsey, yeah, exactly. So we absolutely need these guys chipping in with goals, and I'm really happy because he had a bit of a quiet start to the season, and he's been in and out of the team, and it just looks like he's found a bit of confidence now, and I really hope he can go on because I thought he was awesome. Yes, on Saturday.
Definitely. Again, I think he's been a real shining light. I think that the one consistent thing that he's done this season, even when he hasn't been scoring, is that off the ball work. I feel like he's a real leader in that way. He works so hard, he presses hard, he shouts at everyone, and it's weird because he's probably seen as a bit of an Ozil, Fabregas assist maker, and those haven't really been coming. And is it his fault? I'm not sure. Is it the fault of people, strikers, or people not running? But he's compensating for it with goals somehow, and it's really encouraging to see, as you say. So it's 2-0 at this point. Arsenal seem very much in control, and it felt like there were a whole heap of opportunities to get that third goal before it eventually did come from a set piece. Did you feel like really this was just a case of 2 goals bringing so much confidence, and the team were just then free flowing, and was Southampton a bit shell shocked?
Yeah, because you could almost argue that at 2-0, we probably took the only 2 chances that came our way. I think maybe Lacazette had a chance in the first half as well. But in the second half, honestly, I thought there was a period for about 15 minutes where I thought we played some of the best attacking. We were the most dominant I'd seen Arsenal in about 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Because it was just constant, relentless pressure. And I think you probably have to look back to the Arsene Wenger days where we were 2-0 up and we were just cruising, and we just pin a team back and just pass the ball around the box, wait for a chance, create a chance. And we probably should have won that game about 4 or 5-0 because Gabriel scored, but before that he had a header disallowed, which was, I think, rightful offside. And I think there was a period where I think Saka hit the post, maybe Martinelli hit the post. Someone else had another save to make where I think it was Tomiyasu had a save to make Tomiyasu forced a save from their keeper. And it was just constant, relentless pressure for 10 to 15 minutes. And, the feeling was like, where has this been for the last 2 years? Because where has this come from? When you look at this team and how they, almost bullied Southampton because we were better than them. And I was just thinking, why couldn't we do this against Everton? You could argue that Everton are probably a worse team than Southampton right now, especially you see them at, they lost to Palace on Saturday or Sunday. And yet we go away to Everton, we look nowhere near as good. And here we are just passing the ball, creating chances against a similar level team at home. And
it is an interesting one, though, isn't it? Because you're spotting about Everton. I think we were the first win that they've had in 10 games, right? They've just the only win they've had in their last 10. I mean, it's terrible. But that being said, they are still ahead of Southampton in the league. Southampton haven't been great. Yeah, so they've still managed to get 2 more points than Southampton in the league. Southampton are currently in 16th. So playing devil's advocate, couldn't someone turn around and say, yeah, well, it's all well and good Arsenal able to put in this kind of performance against a team like Southampton at home? It's the away woes that continue to be problems.
That's fair, I think. But I think the reason I was quite pleased with that is we haven't been really putting in these kind of top level attacking performances yet. I mean, where we completely dominate a team for almost an entire half. There are always periods. There's this theme where people said, okay, when Arsenal go 1-0 up, they sit back and almost concede or invite the opposition on. And I felt that was a bit harsh, but there were definitely examples of that in our last 4 or 5 games where we go in front and then just are afraid of losing, so we invite the pressure on. But this was really good, and I really hope it's a sign of things starting to click more frequently, because I think if you look at the last 2 games, I think you've seen the best and the worst of this Arsenal team and this manager.
It's a good point.
And I think after Everton, we were already disappointed. The doubts were creeping in. We're saying, what is, has the manager cost us the game? What were the substitutions like? Football's dire. And then today, on Saturday, it was the complete opposite. The football was pretty good. We scored some really good goals. Even the substitutions were better, I thought. So yeah, why do you think that there's such a big difference between our home form and away form against 2, you could argue, comparable teams?
Partly, okay. So sorry, to the latter specific point about them being 2 comparable teams. That's a difficult one to answer. What if I can just? I guess what I was going to say before that is, I wonder if part of it is the classic kind of teams are better at home than they are away. So there's a little bit of an element of, your home ground, your, whatever. But also I think if you look at the breakdown of our fixtures, home versus away, you could probably argue that the home games have been more straightforward than the away games that we've had this season overall. So I think that might be one. In these 2 games that have just gone, I think it's relatively inexplicable in the sense that I still can't quite put my finger on why we were that bad against Everton. And, don't want to revisit that, but it feels like it was just one hell of a terrible performance. But mate, there was a 3rd goal, and this is something that we have been doing well all season, which is being a threat from set pieces. So Gabriel, he's actually already scored a goal that was disallowed very shortly, before the actual goal. But then Martinelli puts in a corner, and he just puts in a neat header, and it's 3-0. So that's 3 goals for Gabriel. He's outscoring Harry Kane in the Premier League this season.
That's great.
I know. Yeah. Geez,
who isn't, to be fair?
yeah, exactly. So Gabriel, good header. Really happy for the guy. It was kind of covered on Arsenal Twitter about how he found out that his wife was pregnant, and there was a nice video that was going viral on Arsenal Twitter, and then you saw his celebration with the ball and the team really behind him, and it was a really nice 3-0 moment, wasn't it?
Yeah. I don't know how often we have gone 3-0 up in a game. I think it was. A lot of that was just relief from the team that actually, okay, we've actually killed off a game.
Yeah.
And it was fully deserved. And I think after that, we probably should have scored a few more, like I said. But just this mental kind of weight lifted to say, actually, okay, well, we've played well here. and we've taken our chances, and now we're probably going to leave here with the 3 points. And I think
Yeah.
after the last 2 games, you could just see the relief, and then just genuinely a lot of the players just seemed really happy for Gabriel, and it just looked like a really a bunch of lads who just seemed very together, which was really nice to see.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. So there's clearly a group of guys that are really together. There's someone who wasn't with them in this game, and I think it's time that we address the Aubameyang in the room. To be honest, mate, I mean
that was a beautiful transition, by the way.
Yeah, there you go. I work on these. I train on them. Yeah, no. So Oba is. Wow. Okay. So let's just go over the facts as we know it. So on the day, Arteta says that Oba is not in the starting lineup, and he offers the reason as that it's a disciplinary breach. He said he's dropped for disciplinary reasons. He doesn't expand on it, but he says it's for disciplinary reasons. That in itself, could you talk me through that? How do you feel about that? Because people have been divided about that, about even whether if there is a disciplinary issue, it doesn't matter who it is, captain, youth player, the manager shouldn't say that a player is out for a disciplinary issue. What do you think about that?
I just think in this day and age, I think he was probably trying to get ahead of the story, in the sense that, and I'm sure we'll talk about this, the story came out today as to why he was it today or even yesterday, about why he was not present. But having, if he had lied about it, for example, if he said he was injured and then it came out that actually, no, he was facing a disciplinary issue and that's why he wasn't in the team, I think it almost makes Arteta look even worse. So no, I don't have any issue. I know, like back in the Wenger days, I don't think, you could, like, I don't think Wenger ever said, "Oh, this player's out for a disciplinary issue," and maybe he probably lied and covered it up a few times.
With the likes of Bentner and Chesney,
all that Chesney stuff, of course.
Yeah.
But I feel like it, even the Chesney stuff, it came out that he was in trouble when he was smoked in the showers, for example, and I feel like maybe there is an element of Arteta wanting to be seen as this big man in charge, but I do think it's actually probably the sensible strategy for when a player does do something wrong, just be transparent about it, because why not? I don't think it's a big deal.
I think you're right. I think you're damned if you do, damned if you don't as well, right? I think when you're a relatively inexperienced manager, and if the press hear that you've got players who are breaking disciplinary, having breaches and turning up late for things, etc., they'll be quite quick to jump on you and try and act like you haven't got control of your squad. It's perhaps easy if you're a Wenger, if you're a Fergie, no one's really going to question you, are they? They know that you know what they're doing. But okay, so let's so the case itself is allegedly what's happened here is that Aubameyang has gone to visit his mum in Paris. I believe it's Paris. He's gone there. That's been approved. The club have said, yes, that's fine. And he had agreed to fly back, I think, that evening or the next evening or something like that. Basically, on an evening, he had agreed to fly back. And seemingly what's happened is he has not flown back on the agreed evening. He's waited till the next morning to fly back. Apparently, he still made training. He still made the next training session that was scheduled. However, there was COVID breach protocol. There was COVID protocol that was impacted by the fact that he was late.
Yeah.
And therefore, and that's basically, it seems like that's all we know, right? There's nothing. Is there anything I've missed there in terms of the facts of what we know?
No, I think that's a fairly accurate summary. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what David Ornstein, I believe, has said. Now, hearing all that, again, I've seen some people on Arsenal Twitter say, oh, come on. He's visiting his mum and he's back the next morning and he still made training. So what if he didn't make the flight the night before? Are you sympathetic to that?
I wouldn't say I'm sympathetic, but having heard I guess you could say the level of disciplinary breach, I'm actually a bit relieved that it's not anything worse. In that when I first heard, okay, he's been dropped for a disciplinary breach, I was like, oh no, what's he done? Because I think you have to look at this breach, and the reason there's so much noise about it is because it's coming at a time where his form isn't what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been in and out of the team. And there was a whole issue that we talked about in depth where he wasn't brought on. He was on the bench, and then he wasn't brought on before Eddie was. Was that against Everton? Yeah, that was against Everton, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in that context, where you then say, okay, the next game, he's done something mysterious to be dropped from the squad completely, your mind probably goes off on all sorts of thoughts and conspiracy theories in that sense. And actually having heard that, where, he went to France, but he had permission. And then it was just a case of, he was back, but he was back late. I think it's a disciplinary issue. And I think especially in this current climate where these small travel things can spiral into bigger COVID issues, I think I would argue that the club are probably right to discipline him. And I think the real question is now, like, how has he reacted to this? How has he taken this? And how does he respond from here? But no, I think the club have every right to say, well, if you're back on, you come back on this time. Because at this level, when you're elite athletes, the travel, getting on flights, moving around, COVID, all this stuff is, even the smallest things have like potential big consequences.
Yeah, and it's all taken care of. People take care of it for you as well, right?
Exactly.
Like,
like you can get a private jet. It's Paris. Just come back and just do what you're told when you've been given dispensation to go and be with your family. So he has every right to say, look, I want to go spend time with my family for whatever reason. But then when you are given that flexibility, I feel like you should respect it and just come back when you're supposed to. So I think, I think the real question is, how has he taken it? If he said, like, oh, you're out of order for disciplining me, like, I'm embarrassed, my name's been dragged through the press for this, and he's going to sulk, that's one thing. But if he said, look, I was late coming back, fair enough, my fault, I'll take my punishment and then crack on, then I'm kind of okay with it. But I think, I don't know about you, but I feel like there's been a bit of an overreaction to this to a certain extent, because some people are saying he's going to be stripped of the captaincy, who our next captain should be. What do you think? What is the feeling that?
I think there's a lot that muddies this a little bit. I think this is the second time under Arteta that this has happened, right? This is the second time that he's been openly dropped for a disciplinary reason. The first
one, the Spurs, right?
Spurs last season, when again dropped lack of play.
This season, right?
No, it's last season.
It's last season. Okay,
last season. Yeah.
Okay.
Because he scored this season.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So last season, he turned up late apparently for the game. I think that's what it was. I think he was late for the game and he was dropped on the day. That's what it sounded like. So it's the second time that he's been openly dropped for being late in some way. And whether it's leaked and whether this is true, what we heard around that time when that happened was that there was something pervasive, and he had been warned previously for being late to training and just being a bit tardy. And it's quite interesting, right? Because if you recall, Jurgen Klopp gave that interview a little while back where he talked about Auba, and he basically made sort of jest of it, and he sort of said, like, he is the sort of guy that he'll probably turn up late for training every now and again and come up with like some kind of bizarre excuse, but it's just Auba, and it's he's going to deliver and whatever. And so there's this so I think all this muddies it a bit for me, because on one hand I'm looking at it and I go, well, hang on, you're club captain, mate, whether you like it or not, and I presume you like it. You didn't have to take the job, but you're club captain. And I think that you have to set an example as club captain, and for basic things like turning up on time and following instructions. I think these are sort of non-negotiables, as Arteta puts it, and he has to have his captain, he has to have his captain set an example. And clearly this isn't the first time that's happened. So for me, that's kind of one big thing. But then on the flip side, I then come to something that you were talking about around the seriousness of this. You're saying that, you're kind of, it makes you feel better that it doesn't sound like this was that serious or not. The only thing that concerns me with that is because I agree with you, it doesn't feel like it's the biggest breach. And I wonder, I'm being cynical here, has Arteta got himself in a situation where Auba's not performing? He's sort of thinking about transitioning away from Auba, and Auba's giving him a little bit more of a problem than he would like, and he's looking for a reason, perhaps.
I think that was that's the, I don't want to say conspiracy theory, but I've seen suggestions where people say, okay, well, is this another potential Ozil situation where he's now going to be frozen out of this team and, almost managed out? I don't think, I could be wrong. I have no evidence to suggest otherwise, but I don't think it is. I think this is a relatively simple case of, okay, this is a dude who is really bad with his punctuality and is, like you said, should be like any player, shouldn't be like turning up late for training or turning up on the wrong day when you've been granted dispensation for getting back. You get back on time. And it sounds like Arteta has these relatively high standards, and he is saying, well, look, this is enough. You need to. And I think the added complication is this whole COVID and quarantine thing. I don't know what impact that has on, does he have to isolate for an extra day, for example? Does it mean like he didn't get his COVID test done in time or something like that? Yeah. Where I think under this climate where things are getting worse with COVID, I think the club are just taking it seriously. And I think the real question is what will happen with West Ham and how does he respond? And because of the fact that I think Spurs was different because I believe Aubameyang was pretty much starting every game, right? And then he was out of the team, but then the next game he was back in the team. Yeah. Now, against West Ham, if he's not back in the team, we're not going to know if that's because of his performance or because of his disciplinary issues. And, has he then started sulking and has he not turned up in training? And that is the hard part. So yeah, let's see. But I think on the captaincy, I've always actually felt that Aubameyang was a terrible choice of captain, and that it was a huge mistake giving him the captaincy.
Well, it was an accident. It was a decision that was forced in some
because
ways,
of Xhaka,
because of the Xhaka incident, and it was during Emery's time.
Yeah, and I think that definitely added a lot of pressure to Aubameyang, which I don't think he could ever really handle, and he's never really stepped up to this role of captain in the club. And I've seen a lot of people say that the captaincy doesn't matter in the modern game. It's people have an old-fashioned attitude to the captaincy, but I still think it matters in that. And I think I've always felt that I've kind of had a bit of sympathy because people have said, Arsenal don't have a captain, they don't have leaders, and I've said
previously
that that's okay because I don't think we need leaders as a captain. But I think with this young team, I think this young team is crying out for a Vincent Kompany or Patrick Vieira style captain for when things go tough, they can just stand up and actually say, right, no, this is not acceptable, and I'm going to turn this around myself. And I don't think Aubameyang is that player. I don't think we have that many leaders in this team anymore, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. I guess I'll challenge on that. Do you think that, because as soon as you said this team is crying out for a Kompany Vieira, I completely agree with you. I completely see where you're coming from that. And I was thinking, who can do that? I was thinking Thomas Partey. I was like, bloody hell, I don't know if I want that guy leading the team at the moment, the way he's playing. But there are players in this squad that it feels to me that are genuine leaders. They're just very young still. I look at
exactly. I think there aren't many extroverted players in this team. I don't think. You look at Smith Rowe, Saka, they're not stand up and be counted captains where they can rally their troops. Like Tomiyasu is definitely not that player. Even I'd say Gabriel, Ben White, even Tierney to a certain extent. There have been times, and again, some of this might be because they're relatively young, where they just don't feel like they have that experience to step up and be counted. I think the only player that really shows it is Ramsdale, and maybe Lacazette to a certain extent. And we've talked about this before, which is okay, when a player gets kicked or when a player gets fouled, nothing happens because there's no one there to really go to the ref and just make our case heard. And certainly Aubameyang isn't an outgoing kind of fiery extroverted guy. He's another one that just wants to get on and just play the game and do his bit, and he'll step up when he scores. But I'm sure we can discuss this again in a future episode, but I really think that whoever we go and sign now will have to have this kind of extroverted leadership quality when they come into this team.
Yeah, I agree. So I agree with you. I think this is definitely going to come up in the future. But just how you feel now? Are you angry with Aubameyang?
Not in the way that I am like I feel like he should be stripped of the captaincy or he should be like done at Arsenal, for example. Because there were a few hot takes where people like that's it, Aubameyang's done at this club. Mm-hmm. I don't think so. I think depending on how he reacts, if he just takes his punishment and says, okay, well, I messed up, I'm gonna just carry on, play my football, and get back into the team and score lots of goals, I think it'll be fine. So no, I'm not like given we've heard what we've heard. In the scale of like things you can do wrong, I think this is a relatively minor breach, and I think it's been handled. I think it'd be different if we gave him a 5-game ban for this, for example. We said you're not going to play for 5 games. Then I'd say, okay, well, this is a disproportionate reaction. Yeah. I think a one game out of the team when we're at home to Southampton, where he probably wouldn't have played anyway, potentially. I think, okay, let's just draw a line under it and move on. And I hope both parties can move on now.
Yeah, that's what I can say. The bit that's annoying is obviously we don't know everything. Like no. I always, this comes back to some of the conversations we're having about the Ozil saga. How do we know about some of the things that have been said behind closed doors? How do we know that Arteta didn't say to Auba, listen, mate, why didn't you turn up? Why didn't you get the earlier flight? Like you always do this. And Auba's just gone, oh, F off you S. Yeah. I've had enough of you. You're this, that, and the other. Like, you've got it in for me or something. And then Arteta's had to react because of that. We don't know that.
No, exactly. And that's why I'm saying I'm assuming he's taken it and everything has been fair and if he deals with it. But if he goes and sulks and says, actually, well, I'm just gonna not train properly now because I'm fed up with this manager and almost try and lead a bit of a rebellion against the manager, like Ozil probably tried to do it, against him, then I will be angry. I will be disappointed. And then you could say, well, there is a case for him to be stripped of the captaincy and us to find a new captain. But I think it's just a distraction that we don't need. And I hope he kind of just sits down and shuts up.
It's interesting for the Auba-Lacazette dynamic, isn't it? Because they're obviously like such good friends. You always hear about them being such good friends. But ultimately, Auba not being in the team helps Lacazette get in the team.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So like, it's really, I find that dynamic of that faction quite interesting because similarly, the last time that Auba was dropped against Tottenham, Lacazette started and scored, and we won both these times that he's been dropped, and that definitely helps Arteta. When you win after the players drop. But look, like you, I've been really intrigued to see how this plays out. I agree with you that I think it's an overreaction for people to start saying that he should be stripped of the captaincy because purely for no other reason, where do you go from that in the middle of a season? We're in December. Yeah. If you strip your captain of his armband, that really puts the squad into a very weird place in the middle of the season. And you just don't want to deal with that. Yeah,
and like we've had that with the Xhaka situation where, you compare what Xhaka did and what Aubameyang did. They're like, in terms of like significance, they're miles apart. And we don't need that noise. And then there's a whole question of who do you give it to? And it's just a debate that doesn't need to happen. I think, like I said, it was a mistake to give him the captaincy in the first place. But now he's there. I think the only time you can really take it off him is maybe in the summer. Potentially if he goes, who knows?
Yeah. Completely agree. Okay, so I'm sure it's a topic that we'll revisit, and I wonder if we'll revisit it after the West Ham game because it will depend on, depending on whether he's playing or not, if he's still dropped. Let's talk about that West Ham game. So we have a game coming up. Well, do you know what? To be honest, the rate at which people are getting COVID in these squads, and the rate at which, actually, do you know what? Let me say something for now, right? This has been mentioned somewhat, but am I being a conspiracy theorist when I say, I think the first 3 teams that started making loud sounds recently about COVID outbreaks, we need to cancel our games, whatever, were Tottenham, Villa, and Man United, right? All 3 teams who have got relatively new managers. Okay. Am I being a conspiracy theorist to think that this is a bit of a ploy to just get more time for managers to spend with their players? There's three teams, 3 new managers, and they're making a big song and dance about this.
Yeah, I think you are.
Fair enough.
In
All right, I'll put me in my box. Next topic.
In that, I think. Look, I'm not going to defend Tottenham, but their training ground has been closed, right?
Right. Oh,
And
okay. Fair enough.
I mean, there are elaborate ploys to get more time on the training ground, but closing your training ground probably isn't one of them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, I mean, I'm all for it. I love a good conspiracy theory, especially when it involves Tottenham or Man United. But
the devil's in the detail here.
yeah, I mean, there are probably unintended consequences. Like, Spurs have had that game called off now. It might get played at a time which is more beneficial to them. Who knows?
Yeah.
Or it might get played in the midweek between two big games. You don't know. I do feel that it was a bit harsh, however, to not give us that benefit when we were completely decimated by COVID at the start of the season against Brentford. Because it sounds, by all the sounds, like when you hear the reports, it just sounds like our team was completely screwed in terms of we had 2 or 3 players drop out or having to isolate at the start of the season because of COVID. And actually, I think the only reason the Premier League probably didn't do it is because we were literally the first game of the season, and they didn't
completely agree. Completely agree.
They didn't want to postpone the first game of the season. Whereas,
yeah.
So yeah, I'm a bit annoyed about that, but I know you could argue they are getting favourable treatment because, maybe I honestly, if we had probably 3 or 4 players out, who's to say the Premier League might have said, no, you guys still have to play again.
Yeah,
there's that, but you're right. Like, I wouldn't go further than that.
Fine. So let's assume the game goes ahead.
Yeah,
and we have a game at home against West Ham on Wednesday.
Yes,
it's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? So West Ham. Right, let's put the context around this. West Ham surprise package of the season, somewhat you could say, although they were okay last season, but they do sit nicely in 4th. I think that surprised a lot of people the way that they've been able to sustain that. They beat Chelsea. It's been a very interesting season, and you've got a manager who's very experienced, and he's got a team that are defending pretty well and they attack pretty well. The numbers are okay in both those departments.
Yeah.
Now, is the interesting thing, though, I suppose, that, kind of makes it look like it's a game that we should be winning, which is, it surprised me to realize that, we have picked up more points in our last 5 games than West Ham.
Oh, really?
Yeah. West Ham have only won 1 game in their last 5. They've lost 2, they've drawn 2, and they've won 1. That was against Chelsea.
Okay. Yeah. I think... Yeah, that Chelsea game was really a big win for them. But then you look at the way they won that game. I can't remember who scored that final goal. Was it Masuaku, maybe? I can't remember. Where it was a bit of a fluky goal.
Yeah.
But in terms of just like what it did for at least their external perception of how West Ham are doing, was that actually, okay, well, we need to take notice of West Ham now. I mean, people were already taking notice, but I think the thought was actually maybe they'll fall away a little bit and they're not really challengers for top 4. But, that win was like, okay, well, they have the ability on their day to go and beat a lot of big teams. And they beat Liverpool as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm making that up.
Oh, it was at least, or maybe they did. Was it draw? I can't remember, but yeah.
And yeah, West Ham, I mean, they have dropped a level. Like Antonio hasn't scored for a while.
Yeah.
And they've started conceding a few more goals, but I think this is a really big game, and I think if West Ham can beat us, that will really set them up this Christmas period, and I think they will then start to believe that they can do this. So I think it's really important for us, almost psychologically. I think it's way more than 3 points, because I think for us it will be, okay, well, this is another home game with a team that, at least historically, a team that we should be beating. But I think for us, it's a real opportunity to almost, especially with West Ham dropping points this weekend, to almost say, actually, to give West Ham a bit of a reality check. Whereas if they can get a win or even a draw, I think that will then make them feel that even when they're not playing well, if they can go away to Arsenal and get a result, that for them will be huge for them.
Agreed. I mean, it's a game which will be intriguing to see how the managers play it out. Arteta knows David Moyes so well, having played for him for such a long period of time. Long period of time. It's impossible to think that Arteta won't try and look into that tap into that knowledge. It's also that West Ham seem to be a team that have a fairly interesting yet basic set of formula, right? Like it's not like they do anything which you watch and your mind boggles as to kind of the intricacy of various things that they're doing. They get the ball forward pretty fast, and they use Antonio really, really well. And they play some really interesting diagonals, and they look to. I was about to say I was about to say they play the percentages. I don't think that's true because that makes them sound like a Sam Allardyce team. That's not really the case. But basically the point is they really, really do try and make use of the ball. They're pretty efficient with the ball, and they try and do something with it. And it'll be an interesting game for us, right? Because the omens do look good somewhat. We have as I said, we've got a very good home record. We've dropped points against 2 teams at home this season, right? Chelsea, who are brilliant, and Palace, who are taking points off a lot of people. And otherwise, we win at home. That's what we do. We tend to keep clean sheets as well at home. Like you say, Antonio hasn't been playing well. And so, again, how will you... Okay, first and foremost, do you think we will win?
My gut feel tells me a draw. I think we have the capability to win. We certainly, as we've seen on Saturday, we have the talent and the players to win. I think as a team, we have better players than West Ham. My biggest concern is, do we have the mentality to win? Because this is a game, like I said, with huge consequences, I think, in terms of how it sets us up for the Christmas period and how it sets West Ham up. And they'll also be up for it. So do we have the mentality to say, okay, this is an opportunity for us to really, I want to say kill off a rival, but to put a huge dent in their hopes and ambitions. So I think if we win, then we go above them, right?
We do, yeah.
So to say, like, okay, well, West Ham have dropped some points. They're not in a bad run. They're in a bit of a bad run, and let's just like almost hammer home that bad run, and just like say, okay, well, now we're going to take control of this, race for 4th or whatever. And I just don't know if we've got enough to assert ourselves in a situation like that, because I think back to Old Trafford. Old Trafford was another big opportunity to do exactly what we're talking about, which is, okay, well, there's an opponent that's probably not in the best form, but also capable of hurting you. And what we need to do is turn up, assert ourselves in the game, and show them that we are capable and that we are the better team. But we didn't do that against Man United. And my big worry is that going to happen again? Are we going to, is Antonio going to find form out of the blue again? Is Bowen going to start, continue his excellent run that he's been doing recently?
And we don't want to kickstart West Ham's next period of games in the way that we kickstarted Man United. Man United won 3 in a row, and after West Ham play us, they've got 3 very, very winnable games. They've got Norwich at home, Southampton at home, and Watford, I think, the game after that. Do you know what I mean? So it's like it's not. We can't. In my opinion, it's another one of those games where there's a number of reasons why I don't. It's not a must-win game. I don't think you can't call these games must-win at this point. But winning has a lot of repercussions. So does losing. And in this instance, for us to win, we'd go above them. There's a belief element. There's something that I think Arteta and the squad will believe that they can kind of almost forget a little bit about Everton, forget a little bit about Man United. Say, look, we're back on track. We are at least temporarily in 4th. I don't know what time Man United play, but it's possible that we go temporarily in 4th, I think. So yeah, look, I'm completely with you. And my opinion is that we should be beating them. I'd like to see. That's no disrespect to West Ham. I always have to check myself with West Ham a bit because, I think you do have to respect, what they've been doing this season and what they did last season. Yeah. But like you say, I think player for player, we are we're better overall, and we've got a good home record. Again, I'll say that. So I would really like us to play the same team again for continuity purposes, if for nothing else. After
you wouldn't bring Aubameyang back in.
I wouldn't bring him back in now.
Okay.
I think that you know what, like if we're playing a one striker system and your striker scores, like I think that you need to keep that.
What if Smith Rowe's fit? Would you bring him back in?
That's a really good question. So I think, to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised, given that he didn't even come off the bench. I wouldn't be surprised if they're just using this as a really good opportunity to just give him some extended time, like, you know, without playing. And I think they might look at it and think, well, if Saka, Martinelli, and Odegaard are all fit enough to play, then maybe that unit deserves another start together. I take the argument though that, like, you know, still we're a better team with ESR in it than without. It feels though that if he brings ESR in, he has to drop one of those three, and I don't think any of those three deserve to be dropped at the moment.
Yeah, because I mean the logical, you can't really drop Odegaard. I mean, I guess you probably have to drop Martinelli,
which is harsh on the boy. Do you know what I mean?
I thought he played really well on Saturday as well.
He's been very patient. He's come in the team, and he's been playing well since he's got in the team. It'd be really harsh.
Yeah, it would. It would.
What about in central midfield, though, mate?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, personally, I would like to see Lokonga come back in alongside Partey. But we've got those three midfielders, and I think all of them have their flaws at the moment. There's no like one person, even Partey, you could say, well, should Partey be in the team? Although I thought he was pretty good again in the second half against Southampton. I think the first choice is Xhaka and Partey. I think that's Mikel Arteta's first choice. I think I would probably give Lokonga another go, but I don't think he'll do that.
You don't think Maitland-Niles will get a look in at all?
No. I think no, because I think the other thing is we've got a lot of cup games coming up potentially.
We do.
We've got the League Cup, we've got the FA Cup game, and then potentially if we beat Sunderland, a two-legged semi-final in January as well.
Good point.
So that's four games where we might get to see, and then there'll be rotation because this intense Premier League schedule. So I do think we'll see a bit of everyone.
Yeah.
But I think on Wednesday, I think it will be Xhaka and Partey.
I completely agree. I personally think he's going to go from the same team. I
think Smith Rowe will probably start. I actually think Martinelli might drop him down to the bench.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'd be really disappointed if that happens, just because I think it sends a bad message to Martinelli. I think that you could argue that maybe he just needs to, maybe he could turn around and give Saka a rest or something. Maybe he could do that. I think Martinelli being so patient and then playing so well. But again, it's a meritocracy. Emile Smith Rowe's been, probably arguably our best kind of attacking player this season. So look, agree. Let's see. It's probably, who knows, maybe one of those situations that Arteta's probably hoping that ESR isn't fully fit. It gives him that. But we'll see. Look, okay. So score prediction very quickly.
I will go for a 1-1 draw.
Oh, interesting. Okay, and Mai's also, he went for a draw. He's predicted 2-2, hasn't he? So that's what I want to say. I'm going to go for an Arsenal win. I think that we're going to keep a clean sheet again.
Nice.
I think we will win 2-0.
That'd be awesome if that happens.
I think so. I'm being optimistic. Again, I'm banking on the home record. At the end of the day, like, again, if we draw or if we lose, it's statistically an anomaly at home. And I know, like, at the end of the day, we're not going to win every bloody game at home for the rest of the season. Don't get me wrong. But again, that feel good factor from a 1-0. I feel our fans will be really behind the team. I think, our home fans have been so bloody good this season, and away fans. So I'm optimistic for it. I think the boys will be really, really up for it. So yeah, let's fingers crossed, mate. Okay, cool. So until next time, we're not exactly sure when we're going to record next. There's a few things up in the air. One thing, I will be physically up in the air tomorrow on the plane, so that's one thing.
You gonna watch the game? Are you gonna be?
Yeah, well, remember last time this happened when I tried to watch the game and then I got stuck in an airport queue and I missed the Brentford game, which is a massive blessing. So obviously I'm not flying on the Wednesday, so I should be able to watch it. So as long as it's on the TV somewhere in the resort, I will absolutely be there with bells on. And I'm bringing my Arsenal shirt. The shirt that I've packed is the one that you're wearing.
Oh, this one. Good shirt.
Yeah, it's a good shirt. I've got Lacazette
You haven't
on the
yet
back as well.
splashed out on some of the new merchandise?
No, I haven't. Obviously, I will though, because I mean, wow.
You have to.
I mean, I've had non-Arsenal fans message me about that stuff. You know, I've got non-Arsenal fans who are messaging me just talking about that merch.
I reckon I've probably sent more merchandise this year than I have on holidays. just really bad. But mainly because I've hardly gone on holiday this year. But there's just a lot. There's a lot of merchandise. Mainly because there's a lot of merchandise, but it's also very expensive.
It's very expensive. It's very good.
Yeah, they have us. They have us
nailing it. They're nailing. They're absolutely nailing. They're nailing it with the designs. They're nailing it with everything. They're nailing it with the art direction of their adverts, the music of their adverts. I mean, you know, I still think that, you know, that the advert that I think was it for this kit, the kit that I'm wearing right now. You know, that was a really cool advert.
Was that the Ian Wright one?
No, that wasn't that one where it kind of went in and out to kind of a lot of kind of graphics and a lot of you know, kind of animation and exactly
this one was the Ian
Martinelli
Wright
on
one,
the this is an Ian Wright one. I mean, they just nail it. They're so good. So I probably will. Good Christmas time. You know, I might try and buy something for myself. But okay, cool. Enough about that. Like, okay, we can wrap up in about an hour. So look, thanks, mate. Good chat. Look, obviously, thank you for everyone for listening. Please subscribe if you enjoyed this.
Subscribe, rate us, do all that stuff.
Because we feel sad sometimes, you know, when we don't see this. Just play along. We feel sad when we see the subscriber numbers not going up. You know, it makes us feel bad. And, you know, some of the auto downloads on, you know, the pod platforms, they really help as well. Just do it, put it on auto download. And if you want, just delete it afterwards. But, you know,
rate us, give us 5 stars on iTunes and Spotify if you can do that. I don't even know if you can, but
exactly.
Write a review about how great we are. Do that stuff, please.
Do that. Don't make us compromise in our beliefs. We don't want to become some random sensationalist Arsenal pod who, you know, video themselves for 90 minutes during games. We don't want to do that. But, you know, give us a little bit of validation and love. Make our Christmas.
Indeed.
All right. And maybe then one day, you know, Mize will turn up and Nero will turn up, and, you know, we can have 4 of us again.
One can dream.
One can dream. All right, guys. Thanks for joining. Enjoy the continuation of your festive season, everyone. And we will talk to you soon. All right.
See ya. Bye.
Bye-bye.